Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome back to the Unbounded Growth. My name is Marc-Alain and I'm your host. This is our fourth episode actually of our third season. And today we are finally starting to dive into the book that we promised that we will be diving into this season. The book is called As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. Just a few recap of what has been going on in the last few weeks. Last week we did not hear because we just wanted to give you enough time to digest the episode with David Copening on his book What's Next, and we hope that you've acquired a copy. And see, if you still haven't acquired a copy, we put the link in the description of this video or the podcast if you listen to us on your favorite podcasting platform. Again, we had that episode about 2 weeks ago, and we had a very fruitful conversation, just discussing and trying to discover what exactly is next for your life. Sometimes you get to that point in your life where you've graduated, maybe you've got a house, maybe you've got a new car, maybe, and it's a dream that you've been working so hard for, and it gets to a point where you start wondering, what should I do next? And this question is being answered by Dr. David Copening, giving you a strategy, a three-step strategy on how to discover what should be the next step of your life whenever you are ready to take and move on to take a new decision. So I encourage you to watch that episode that I aired about 2 weeks ago, but we also encourage you to get a copy of the book. As this being our first anniversary as Unbounded Growth, it's unbelievable. It's been a full year that Adam and I have been here and trying to encourage and grow a better you. As you know, here on Unbounded Growth, we're trying to always invest in you, invest in who you are, and we do that, of course, by reviewing the books that we talk about every single week, but also exposing you to people and ideas to enrich lives in any way that we can. And here on Unbounded Growth, that's our mission, that's our goal, that's our vision, that's what we strive for every single day, to see a better you. And the way you do that is by actually not only listening to us, but also practicing the things that we talk about here. And we also do the same. We're not just here talking and telling stories. We are actually practicing and trying to implement those things in our lives. So we've had two guests out of 3 episodes. That's crazy. I know this season. We promise to have a lot of people here for this and next season as well. We have a lot of guests coming, and the other episode that we talked about was with Zephos, my young brother, where he was talking about how do you go about elevating your mindset. And if you want to understand more, if you want to learn more about what can you do to become a better you, check out that episode as well. And of course, if you're a French speaker, we also encourage you to check out Johun Podcast, which is the podcast being run by my brother back in the Congo. But again, the link to the book of Dr. David Copening and his son called Colton will be in the link of this description, and we talk about it for the month of June to make sure that you get a copy, and we do something random and we send one copy, either PDF or the original book, the hard copy. If you are within the United States, we ship one copy to one of our listeners. All you have to do is to share this episode, share it on your Instagram. We post this episode on Instagram, just make sure you share it, and we send you a free copy. We pick up a random user and we send them a free copy of the book so you can try to figure out what's next in your life. So this season we decided that one thing we're going to focus on was the mind. Everything that goes in between your right and left ear can determine where you are today and where you will be tomorrow. As a matter of fact, a lot of people, a lot of neuroscientists that believe and have actually proven that the reason why you are where you are today, or the reason why you do what you do today, the reason why your character and your habits have been formed the way they have been formed, is because of what's going on in your mind. And it's crazy because if you can just change the pattern of your thoughts, if you can just start nurturing thoughts that encourage you to become the person that you want to be, you have more chances of becoming that person than if you do not. Now, here's maybe something that I would like to debunk here. I think it's a myth. A lot of people think it's the truth, but I don't think it is the truth, scientifically or spiritually, whichever way you come around at it. But I've heard people saying that you can become anything you think about. That's not entirely true, and I'll say why. My dad passed at 69. He was a lawyer, and he was pretty good at his job. At the age of 69, he was still physically strong. But I don't care how hard my dad would have thought about joining the NBA at 69. I don't think he would have succeeded at doing that. So to that rule, there's already an exception that's telling you that it's not just everything that you think about that you can become about. But Zig Ziglar said something that captures maybe the essence of the importance of positive thinking and why that's crucial for your life. Zig Ziglar said that positive thinking will not help you achieve everything in life. That's just a lie. But the truth is, positive thinking will help you achieve everything better than negative thinking will. And when it comes to the paradigm of the mind, a lot of what you think about end up becoming your reality. As a matter of fact, that's even what James Allen, and the book is here, as we've promised. I have a hard copy of the book, but you can use a soft copy if you're using a Kindle, or you prefer to read on your computer. But in the introduction of the book, and if you're watching us on YouTube, of course, you can see the cover of the book. Just make sure that you get the right copy. It says this: a man is literally what he thinks, his character being the complete sum of all his thoughts. You are literally what you think. Your character, your habits are created. They all originate in your mind. So if there's something that you want to change today, the question is not how you're going to do it. The question is, what are you constantly feeding your mind with? And that's why it's so important and crucial to spend adequate amount of time auditing your thoughts. It's the middle of the year. It's the month of June. And there's one thing I always like doing. I don't know. Some people run their lives in a different way than I do, obviously. But there's one thing that I've noticed and I like doing. At the beginning of the year, of course, I have my year resolution. And I don't start preparing my year around December 25th or 26th. The party's already, the festivities already there. And I'm not really paying too much attention to that. I like to start preparing the next year or the subsequent years around October-ish. Right around my birthday, I was privileged to be born in October. And right around my birthday, I try to spend time to just think about what do I want to achieve in the coming year. But not only what do I want to achieve in the coming year, but also where is my life headed right now? Because you see, and this is why I encourage you again to check out Dr. David Koppeling's book, because this is what interesting. A lot of people run their lives without a plan. They wake up in the morning and whatever comes on their plate, that they follow. They do everything that they want to do without ever really putting the thought into it. And that's why you find a lot of people wake up in the morning, someone calls them, do you want to do this today? And yes, they're ready to do it. Why? Because they're not spending adequate amount of time just thinking about their goals or thinking where they want to go or thinking about the things that they want to achieve. Zig Ziglar gave another example, which I think was very pertinent. And I'll talk a lot about Zig Ziglar in this season because he also dealt it all with the mind, with your attitude. The attitude of gratitude is one of the things, the expressions that I got from him actually, where he explains about the importance of goals, the importance of setting goals. He gives this example. And the lesson actually I learned from the example, I'll just give the lesson. I'll probably talk about the example another day. But the lesson he gives in the example says that it's better to miss a target that you have than to not to have a target at all and hit it every single time. So he gives the example. I'll just give the example. He talks a story about this guy. He says he was the best hitter in a certain sport. Like every target that was set in front of him, he could hit that target with his eye closed because he was just so good at it. And then one time he said, well, what if you blindfold him and turn him around, spin him for about like 10, 15 times until he's really dizzy. And then you set the target and you tell him to hit the target. Can you do it? And he said, well, that's impossible. How can you hit a target that you do not see? And there was the lesson. How can you hit a target that you do not see? You have a chance in a million to hit a target that you do not see, but you have zero chance in a billion to hit a target that you do not have. The problem is that a lot of us, we don't have targets to hit. We're not aiming at anything. We're just shooting around arrows and hoping that someday, somehow, something will happen. Your life has to be intentional. If you want to achieve your goals, if you want to go somewhere, if you want to achieve certain things in life, if you want to live a life of satisfaction, you've got to have targets. You've got to have goals. You've got to have ambitions. And the only way to have ambition is spending time developing those ambitions. Some parents were magnificent, where they sit with their children and start telling them about goal settings and the things that they need to do, the things that they add to understand about life and things that they need to go after. Some parents were not trained that way, and they never trained their children that way. So you run your life by the day. You wake up in the morning, whatever comes on your plate, you deal with it, and once you're done with it, you move on to the next thing. But if you want to achieve something, if you want to grow, even growing is intentional. So everything starts with your thoughts. And the reason why I say that is because in school, for example, it's a universal truth, by the way. Everything starts with your thoughts. But I'll give you a personal example. I struggled a lot in school when I was in school early, in primary school, or maybe I remember even struggling in kindergarten, like little things like drawing and stuff like that. I just wasn't good at them, and maybe there's another reason for that. I didn't like school at all, so I made all the efforts that I could not to go to school. If there was a day I could possibly get sick, trust me, I'll make sure I get sick. But then later on in my life, things changed. The guy that was very shy, the guy that didn't speak a lot, became a little bit more proactive, became a little bit more open, became a little bit more outgoing, and people that knew me a very long time ago. As a matter of fact, I have a friend. She's like a sister to me. I've known her for more than 28 years. Brenda, remember, I hadn't talked to Brenda in more than 15 years, and then I moved to the United States. Brenda and I get on the phone and we talk for more than 4 hours. And Brenda asked me, Mark, what has happened to you? What is going on? This is not a guy I knew. And I started telling her my story about, of course, the years of struggles in school that she was already familiar with, but then how things had changed, how I decided to go for an engineering degree, and how I was working hard toward it. Everything, to me, of course, coming from a religious background, was faith. Faith did it for me. But then when I think about my faith, for some of y'all who are not really religious, the biggest transformation in my faith was the change of my thoughts, the way I thought about myself and the way I looked at myself. Because James Allen says here, as you think, so you are. Because the reason why I struggle a lot was that I never invested time even thinking that I was smart. It didn't matter how much I tried to study. The base of my whole life was run on the paradigm that you are not smart. So the efforts that I was putting into the work into school were not paying off, because deep inside of myself, inside of my mind, I always thought, well, this is not going to work because you're not smart. But when I got saved and then, I started having these confessions and stuff that we talked about with Zeph, and we also posted it on our Instagram page, where we provided a link where if you want to create your own confessions every morning. I started creating that list. I started creating the list of confessions, and I started repeating them to myself every day, that I'm not stupid, I'm smart. And then I changed, and Dr. David talks about it in his book, where he says, do not say the things that you do not want. Say the things that you want. Don't say, I don't want to be obese, or I don't want to be alcoholic. No, that's not what you want. That's what you do not want. Say rather, I want to be fit. I want to be healthy. I want to live a life of discipline. And that's what I started saying. I started saying to myself that I am smart. I am intelligent. I spend time reviewing my notes. I study and I pass my tests. People come to me for advice. People come to me for I was for homework, help, and all that. And I was confessing these things every single day. It changed the way I was thinking. It changed the way I was acting, and it changed the way I was behaving. And this is why your thoughts are so important, because they run your life. They run what you believe. Even reading a book, a lot of people tell me, oh, I don't read books. I don't like reading books. Books are boring. Oh, I can't read a book. I've tried multiple times. I've tried several times, but I feel like I cannot read a book. And I always say to myself, well, there is the problem. There is your problem is because you think you cannot. The day you start changing the way you're thinking, the day you start changing the way you envision yourself, you have a look at yourself, is the day your life will be changing. And apologies, I didn't talk about this at the beginning, but Adam wasn't able to join today. Him and I have been struggling a lot with school lately. He's working on his dissertation, as you all know. He's working on his PhD, and I'm also working on my two last classes for my MBA, and they have been super busy. Anyways, back to the book. Doctor, I like to call him Doctor, but he was not a PhD. James Allen says this. He has a few chapters here. The first one, which we were already talking about today, and that we continue to talk about today, is thought and character. How do your thoughts affect your character? The second one is the effect of thoughts on circumstances. How can your thought affect your circumstances? And again, that's very tricky. Adam and I, we spend a lot of time talking about this, and we talk about it again in our next episode. But you may ask me, Mark, I'm living in a situation that I do not like. Marc-Alain, I don't like the way what I'm seeing right now. Am I responsible for it? Am I responsible for the death of my father? Am I responsible for the accident I was in yesterday? Of course, you're not responsible for all that. But then there is always a cause and effect thing, right? Something may happen to you. You have no control over that. What you have control over is the way you respond to what has happened to you. It's not what happens to you, it's how you respond to it. That's why you see two people in the same situation. They've all been laid off. Two people, same situation, been laid off, and maybe have had a hard time making ends meet. One of them may go down a spiral of despair, where depression can come close by, where they can be wondering, what is it that I'm going to do next? I do not know how to do anything else. But another person in the same situation can have a different attitude and say, you know what? Now I have more time to study. Now I have more time to think about my life. Now I have more time to do this and that. And of course, you may tell me, Mark, there is a question of bills. There is a question of all that's happening to me. Remember, it's not what happens to you, it's how you respond to what happens to you. Because what happens to you, most of the times, you do not have control over that. But how you respond to what happens to you, that you have control over. And that's what we talk about mostly in the effect of thought on circumstances. And then it talks about the effect of thought and on health. The effect of thought on health and the body. How can your thoughts affect your body? It's funny, and I don't know if I can even see the book in the back here, but I have it somewhere here, the book on emotional intelligence, where I learned this truth, which was interesting and amazing. It said in the book that a lot of trained surgeons will not perform surgery on the patient who has a poor attitude, who's too afraid about losing his life during surgery. They won't do it because they say that the author says that it can create complications. The simple fact that you're thinking too negatively about the surgery can create complications, and you may lose a lot of blood during surgery because your brain is sending stress signal to your whole body. So your body is under stress subconsciously. Even when they're performing the surgery, a little cut can create a lot of blood. Of course, I do not have medical evidence to prove that. I'm just quoting what the author from emotional intelligence says. So your thoughts can have an impact on your body. I think Zig Ziglar in one of his talks actually talks about it. He says that when you're trying to lose weight and everything you eat, you think turns into fat, you might never be able to lose weight because you are afraid to eat, and the stress in your body start generating more weight instead of you losing weight. So the fourth chapter he talks about here, he said thought and purpose. How can your thoughts affect your purpose? And then he also talks about the thought factor in achievement. How do your thoughts play a big factor in your achievements? And then the two last chapters he talked about visions and ideals, and we talk about this again in details. It's a small book. You can literally read it in one sitting. And if you're listening to the audio, it's less than an hour. You can listen to the whole book in an hour. But I'll encourage you not only to listen to it once, not only to listen to this episode once, but to listen to it again and again, to spend time listening to this until you digest this and this really goes into your subconscious, and you can start doing some of the things without even thinking. And the last thing he talks about here is serenity. What is serenity? So in the first chapter, as I was talking about here, he said man is literally what he thinks. His character being the complete sum of all his thoughts. There's another statement here which I thought was interesting. And he said, as a plant springs from and could not be without the seed, every act a man springs from the hidden seed of his thoughts. Well, in simple English, I know this is kind of old English, and I hope there's a newer version of this book where it's actually written in modern English. But what it pretty much says that there is no plant that can exist if there's no seed that was planted in that soul. The same way, there's nothing that can happen to you, or there's nothing you can make happen unless you first spend time to think about it. Now, it's funny or interesting because these are laws. I like to call them laws of God, and a lot of people love to call them laws of nature, or whichever you decide to call them, they're still laws. The benefit of the laws is this. There's a benefit, of course, there's also some disadvantages. The biggest benefit of a law is that it works. Regardless of who applies the law, it works. If you are under the right circumstances, with the right ingredient, the law works for you. I'll give an example, the law of gravity. It doesn't matter if you believe in it or you don't. If you jump off a building, the law of gravity we apply on you. It doesn't matter. The problem is the laws work even when you are not aware of them. Even when you say, well, I didn't know about this law of sowing and reaping. Well, it doesn't matter. If you still create some causes, the law will apply to you and you reap the consequences of that law. And your mind, Marc-Alain describes it as a field. It's like an empty field that's not only empty, but is also very fertile. The ground is very fertile. That's the way your mind works. And everything you put in it, consciously or unconsciously, will bear fruit. And that's very important. Because sometimes you wonder, why am I reaping the fruits of things I did not sow? Maybe you did not sow them intentionally, but you still reap the fruits. I went by a field in my neighborhood here. It was an empty field. They put a fence around it. I saw a few weeks ago some tractor coming there, making the soil really cool and everything was looking good. Apparently they wanted to build something, and then a few weeks went by. There was nothing that was happening. And then 3 months later, I started seeing a lot of plants, a lot of wheat. There was nothing. They didn't plant anything there. And I started wondering, who planted this wheat? And I realized that maybe nobody did. Well, nobody intentionally planted something out there. But then there are birds of the air. They probably took a seed from here and dropped it there. And because of the fertility of the ground, the plant itself started growing. That's the same way our minds work. It doesn't matter if you put something in your mind intentionally or unintentionally. Once the seed has been planted, somewhere, somehow, it's going to grow. Now, what can you do about it? Your thought and your character. If anything that's thorn in your mind can grow and bear fruit, won't you be mindful about what goes into your mind? Instead of just walking by your day, aimlessly going, not understanding what is being put in your mind. Advertisement company are out there. There's something in Texas. I haven't seen it in another state, but I've seen a lot in Texas. You drive, Highway 45, driving from Dallas to Houston. You see this big bowl where they're saying, do advertisement work? And then the statement that falls after say, it just did. Because everything that you look at, whether you perceive it or not, whether you consciously look at it and pay attention to it or not, somewhere, if your eyes capture it, they stay somewhere in your subconscious. And that's how American company will a lot of times put women on billboards because they know a woman will grab men's attention. And whether they're thinking consciously about it or not, they'll see the woman, but they'll also see whatever company advertisement. So my point is, if anything that goes into your mind can grow, if I knew that anything that goes into my field could grow, I'll be more intentional about what I'm trying to grow out of my field. So it's important to start evaluating your thoughts. What are the thoughts that are always dominating your life? And again, you can just look at that by looking at the quality of life that you're living. If your life is very negative, you're always bringing yourself down, you're always putting yourself down, you don't believe in yourself, you always struggle with what am I going to do next, am I going to be tomorrow? If you're always asking yourself those type of questions, if you feel like you're always you have a short temper, if you feel like I don't like the way I behave, I don't like the way the things are going in my life, the question is, what is going on in your mind? What are the things that you are allowing in your mind? And sometimes the problem with your mind is that your mind doesn't forget things easily. At least your subconscious mind does not. You can forget them. There's certain things I do today. I'm not thinking about them. There's certain reaction I have today. Now that I have a son, sometimes I'm doing something and I'm not even paying attention to my facial expression. And Plamini, my wife, will look at me and be like, Marc-Alain, why is you and Adam Blaze having the same facial expression at the same exact time? And I'm not even realizing that I did not consciously create that facial expression. It's because I heard something, maybe because I thought about something, it's because maybe I saw something, and my face reflected what I did. And that's the same way your mind works. Everybody's mind works that way. Whether you do it intentionally or unintentionally, if it gets into your subconscious mind does not forget the things that you learn. And it's very important to start replacing things in your subconscious mind by the type of things that you want to live, by the quality of life that you want to live. Don't just watch movies for the sake of watching movies. What are those movies teaching you? What is the message coming into your mind? Don't just listen to music for the sake of listening to music. What is the type of music that you're listening to? What is that music? What's the effect of those words, of the lyrics coming to your mind? I remember one time I was working in a company where I was a computer repair tech, and I think 4 or the 5 guys that I work with were from the military. And everybody from the military, they have different backgrounds and different things. But this particular group cursed every single day. Now think about this. I'm spending with these people about 8 to 10 hours of my day, every single day. I walk into there, we're having conversations, and every single day, every curse word you can think of was coming out of their mouth. And I'm not saying everybody from the military does this. I've met amazing people from the military who don't curse, and being a Christian and trying to really keep my language sane, my mentor Tyson always tells me there is a better choice of words in the dictionary. There are better choice of words that I can use to express my frustration or whatever it is. I'm not here to attack you on cussing. If you do it and you consciously do it and that's your thing, I don't have any problem with it. Just don't do it around me if you can, please. But what happened is that the simple fact that I worked with those guys for a very long time and I listen to them every single day and that we're doing the work every day. I remember one day someone cut me off in the traffic and unconsciously, without even knowing, without even thinking about it, the first word that came out of my mouth was a curse. And as soon as it came out, I was like, whoa, how did that come out? Where did this go? Like, how did this even happen? That's when I started realizing that everything that is sown in your mind, regardless of whether you allow it to be sown or not, if you don't take time to uproot it and get it out, he will bear fruit. He will bear fruit. Your thought will determine your character. James Allen says that man is a growth by law and not by creation of artifice. And the cause and effect is an absolute, undivisible, and hidden realm of thought as the world of visible material of things. Your thought, the cause and effect, are real. Everything that you think of today, everything that you constantly think of today, will become your reality tomorrow. Of course, it's just a seed. I'm reading this other book by Joseph Asaraf. I think Joseph Asaraf and Murray Smith. It's called The Answer. And if you're on YouTube, of course, you can see me showing this book on video. But if you listen to me, just check out the book of Joseph Asaraf, The Answer. And the subtitle says, Grow Any Business, Achieving Financial Freedom, and Live an Extraordinary Life. He talks about a lot of things, like things like a lot of laws that I find weird and I don't fully agree with. Things like the law of attraction, and of course we can agree to disagree on some of this stuff. His approach and how it explain the law of attraction, and the reason why I don't agree with that law is because, and of course John Asaraf and Murray Smith actually spend a lot more time explaining what they actually mean by the quote unquote law of attraction. We tend to think that everything that you think about constantly you attract. The reality is that if you think about tomatoes in your garden, you can think about it all every day. You can think about it however long you want. But if you don't go outside in your garden and plant tomatoes, you're not going to get tomatoes. It's just the law of cause and effect. And they, of course, they explain it in the book to give them some credit as well. Just want to demystify that law of attraction or whatever myth that goes out there, whatever you think you can become or whatever. Nah, it's not true. There's a lot more to that than just thinking about something. But at the source, at the very origin, your thoughts will mostly determine what you become tomorrow. The things that you will do tomorrow, the way you run your day tomorrow. And if you don't have a plan, if you're not thinking about anything else, trust me, you're going to fall into somebody else's plan. If you don't nurture your thoughts to lead the kind of life that you want to lead, I can guarantee you will be living into somebody else's life. So the law of cause and effect, the thoughts that you have today will determine the way you carry yourself out tomorrow. And if the way you want to carry yourself is contrary to the way you're thinking, it's time to review. It's time to review the way that you're thinking. There's a statement I was looking for here that I can't find it. I forgot to underline it. And there we go. It says, man is made or unmade by himself. In the armory of thought, he forges the weapon by which he destroys himself. He fashions the tools with which he builds himself heavenly mansions of joy and strength of peace. By the righteous and true application of thoughts, man ascends into divine perfection. By abuse and wrong application of thought, he descends below the level of the beast. Between those two things, there's one thing that comes into this intersection. The way people behave, whether you're talking about someone who's out there doing some work like Mother Teresa, or whether you're talking about someone who's out there, taking joy in killing people like Osama bin Laden. The difference between those two extremes is what is going on in their mind, the way they're nurturing their thoughts every single day. As I'm winding up this episode today, my question to you is, what is going on in your mind? What is the type of thoughts and pattern that are dominating your mind? And we talk about this in this book, but also more or less we talk about that in the next book by Craig, Pastor Craig, where he's talking about winning the battlefield in your mind. What can you do? And this book, I like to read them together because Pastor Craig gives you the tools that you need. And they're not necessarily, they're of course from a religious biblical background, but you do not need to be a Christian to apply them. It goes back to something that I said before. A law is a law. Whether you believe in it or you don't believe in it, if you do something that goes against the law for the law will have effects on you. The cause and effect are true and apply to every single person. But my question is, what are the type of thoughts, the pattern of thoughts that are dominating your thoughts every single day? Are you living the life that you want to live? And if you're not, what are the things that you are doing with your mind? I was talking about the law of attraction, the law of attraction a few ago, and Joseph Asaraf talks about it as well. I mean, I learned it from him. I heard it randomly, different people talking about it. I never believed in it, but when you explain it, is that of course you think about something, but you also pose some actions to get you there. The truth is, your thoughts will always be followed by some actions. Not always necessarily, but let me rephrase this. Your action will always be preceded by your thoughts. The way you act today will always be preceded by something you've thought about today, or maybe you thought about in the past, or something you thought about 10, 15 years ago, but just stay there in your subconscious, dormant, until the opportunity presented itself. So it's important to nurture your thoughts. It's important to be careful about what you feed your mind with. It's important to be careful about the things that you do every single day. And that's why I encourage people. You want to lead a certain type of life? Start nurturing the thoughts that can help you live that. I'll finish this episode with this example, excuse me. My mentor and good friend, Tyson Bounty, and we're going to have him on this season, on this episode, to tell us about his amazing story. In our mentoring session, one time, I asked him, I was like, Mr. Tyson, how did you happen to become a vice president? He told me the story about his whole career, about how he was going to school. He wanted to be a medical doctor. And in his final year, he decided that that's not what he wanted to do. So he still finished up his degree in biology and decided to start teaching himself computer science. He taught himself computer science, became a programmer, a developer, and then he got promoted to a manager. He's a very smart gentleman, a very, very smart gentleman. I've really had a great privilege to be mentored by him, but also to be a friend where I can rely on him when I need advice. He said he became a manager, and he was a manager for a very long time. And then one time, he wanted to be promoted to a director level. But he said deep within himself, he did not believe that he could become a director. And there was a day he was in a meeting with his boss, who was on the director level, and they were talking. And Mr. Tyson told me that at that point, he thought to himself, I can do the job that this man is doing. And he said that was the turning point of his life. Maybe it didn't happen within the next month or 2 months or 3 months, but the simple fact that he thought that I could be doing the job of this man changed the paradigm about his thought, changed the narrative that he was telling himself, changed the way he had looked at himself for a very long time. And he started working toward that position until he was promoted to director, senior director, and he became a VP in a company where we had, I believe the company where we both worked together. We had more than, 50 VPs, and he was one of the fewest people of color on that position. And me joining the company and seeing someone there gave me the boost and the motivation to be like, I want to be like Tyson. People say I want to be like Mike. Yeah, I wanted to be like Tyson. I wanted to grow. I was like, if it's possible for him, it's possible for me. And that's the way your thoughts work. If it's possible for someone else, it's possible for you. But you need to change the way you're thinking. You need to nurture the thoughts that you feed yourself with every day. If your thoughts are always negative, if your thoughts are always leading you toward blaming yourself, belittling yourself, or thinking that you are not worth it, then start writing those thoughts out, because you got to know them first. Write out the thoughts that you have that are dominating your mind every day. But after you've written them out, write the thoughts that you want to have. And to borrow again Dr. David Koppeling's book here, write them in a positive way. Don't say, I don't want to think negatively anymore. No. Say that my thoughts are thoughts of positivity. My thoughts are thoughts of godliness. My thoughts are thoughts of prosperity. My thoughts are thoughts of blessing. And start looking at the things that you want to do, the things that you want to achieve. You want to be a software engineer? Say, I am a software engineer. Start confessing that. But after you've done all that, after you've changed the part in your thoughts, then you can start working toward achieving something. I'll tell you one thing for sure. Maybe your thoughts will not create the future you want. Your positive thought may not create the future you want, but I tell you one thing: the negative thoughts will certainly create you the future you do not want. The negative pattern of the thoughts, if you continue to nurture those thoughts every day, you will start living the type of life that you never imagined that you wanted to live. The worst possible type of life. You dive deep into depression until you take care of your thoughts. As a matter of fact, the author, I keep on forgetting his name, but the author of Emotional Intelligence book tells this story, the way depression works. And the way depression works is a negative thought after another that keeps on going on and on and on into the cycle until you dive deep into the realm of depression. And the way to stop, of course, I may make this sound simplistic, but it's not as simplistic as it may be, because it may take some effort, it may take some motivation, it may take some counseling, it may take some professional help to help you through that. But one thing that can help you is to identify the negative thought as soon as it's birthed in your mind and kill it, replace it. You may not kill it or eliminate it. You cannot say, I will not think about this. No, it's there in your subconscious, somewhere in your mind, but you can think about something different. You can decide to say, okay, maybe I will not think about my addiction. Let me think about a life of freedom. Let me picture. And the power of the human mind is that you can think about what you think about. It's one of the most amazing things that I like in the Bible, when Paul is writing, I think, to the church of Philippi, and he's telling them, whatever things are true, whatever things are noble, whatever things of good report, whatever things are praiseworthy, and he tells them, think about those things. So there's a certain list of things that you can decide to consciously think about. And every time a negative thought arises in your mind, you replace it with something that you decide to think about. Ladies and gentlemen, it's with this that I'll be finishing up today. Next week, I believe that Adam will be back, as he'll be freed up a little bit more from his research, and I hope that I'll also be here as I have some finals coming up next week. I have a very heavy, busy week coming up next week, but we try to both be here. As today, this episode is being recorded today on Monday, June 19th, as we're celebrating the emancipation of slaves, the abolition of slavery in the United States. It's definitely a great day for me and all the immigrants and all the minorities around the year. A great day for America, where we decided to become more human than we were in the past with the atrocity and the things that slavery brought in. But with that being said, we see you next Tuesday. We believe that Adam will be back. Make sure you run an audit of your thoughts. Check in the description to see the link to the book of David Koenig, and also the last episode to Zeph at the end of this video. Don't forget to check that out. And if you have any questions, do not forget to email us at info@theunboundedgrowth.com. Again, our email is info@theunboundedgrowth.com. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn. We have posts almost every single day that can help you nurture positive thoughts and thoughts of the person that you're trying to become, the person that you're trying to be. So don't forget to check us out there as well. If you have any questions, if you have any concern, if you have donations, we are always taking donations, and I just want to give a shout out to all the people that started donating since this third season. We've had more donors added to our list than we've had in the last year alone. So we decided, with the extra money and the extra donation that we get, we are sending one more kid to school this year. We actually secure enough funds to pay for the education of one more kid in Congo. So we really appreciate the work you're all doing out there. And if you still want to donate us more, do not forget, you can go to www.theunboundedgrowth.com. And if you want to donate like a huge amount via Zelle, we have a Zelle number. You can contact us again at info@theunboundedgrowth.com, and we give you the details for that. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, you have an amazing week. Don't forget to share this episode with your friend, your family, and your loved ones. God bless you, and we'll be seeing you next week. Bye-bye.